All right. Let me get up here and running. There it is. Hey, show's working now. Welcome. Sorry for the delay, folks. It's family FaceTime day and schedule got slightly pushed. So, hello. Good to see you. So much to talk about, and we'll never have enough time. So I feel like we should dive right in. But first, I want to say hello to the greatest chat room in the history of chat rooms and the greatest live stream in the history of live streams. What's up, Sparklers? How you guys doing? All right. I gotta say, there is a bottomless pit of distractions around Trump, and I gotta say, it's not surprising, but I want to jump right in with a couple of points I'd like to make right off the bat. Number one, maggots, listen up. People might have to share this clip out because I don't know necessarily that they jump in this early. They tend to show up late because, you know, they're lazy and stupid. Maggots, listen up. You cannot have your leader claim to be the man who's in charge of everything. I run the government and the world. You can't have a guy who says that shit and then get pissed when the people who are basically tasked with the job of going after the man, people like South Park, end up going after him. You whiny little bitches. What, you can't be the hero and the victim at the same time. You can't be your own damsel in distress, you fucking wet diapered toddlers. Stop bitching about the fact that this asshole can't take a joke. It's really lame. It's like strikingly lame. In the face of all the other stuff that's going on, it's maybe even it's more pronounced because you assholes can't deal with the Epstein thing, right? It's amazing. Somebody called a wambulance for these motherfuckers. It's pitiful. Get over yourselves. Only a weakling can't take a joke. And Trump has never been able to take a joke. Therefore, cogito ergo sum, e pluribus unum, have a nice day, he's weak. And every time you bitch about somebody making fun of him or mocking him, you point out the fact that not only are you weak for following him, but he's weak because he can't take a fucking joke. And the other thing is not only if you're in the position of authority, you're the fucking president of the United States, you're the fucking principal of the high school, I don't give a fuck. If you have power over other people, they're going to take the piss out of you. And if you can't handle it, you cannot do the job. And Trump's problem isn't just that he can't take a joke, he is a joke. And you know it, that's why you get upset. That's why you guys can't deal. Let's be honest. The reason why all of MAGAdom gets upset when people mock Trump is because they know that whoever's telling the joke is right. That's why you get upset. You get upset when people make fun of Trump's stupid fucking hair and his stupid fucking cheating at golf and his dumbass properties and his shitty restaurants and his crappy golf lodges and his broke ass leveraged fucking buildings with the sewage backup and the fucking Alpha Bank servers in the basement. The reason you get upset about any jokes around those things is not because of the people that are telling them. It's because you know they're true. That's why. That's why you're upset. You're upset because they don't sound like jokes to you. They sound like criticisms based on reality, which they are. They're just funny to anybody who isn't gargling his balls every fucking day. So hop off his dick, you testicular pelican, and get some fucking perspective. Other than that, I have no opinion. This is Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. Now, the second thing is that apparently I was the target of a TikTok. Ooh. Someone took a clip from the show. I couldn't watch it because I don't have TikTok because TikTok is malware. Get it off your fucking phone. And apparently they themselves also don't have the fortitude to put it anywhere, you know, that isn't run by ByteDance and the Chinese government. And I, first of all, very excited. It's about goddamn time. Secondly, I think there was something to it, and again, I can't watch the whole thing because I don't have TikTok, so it just asked me to download. I was like, "Fuck you." That apparently it was a mask off moment. Yes, that apparently I went mask off. And I don't know what it was in reference to, again, because I don't download Chinese malware onto my fucking phone. But I'm fairly certain it had to do with somebody asking me about my opinion about Gaza and I'm guessing, my statement about that ship has sailed because of faux-aggressive assholes who sold the Gazans down the river. And, yeah, which is exactly what fucking happened. So, in response to that, if indeed I think that's pretty much what the gist was, in response to that, the question was by this person apparently, what is your answer to my criticism? Here is my answer. Watch my video again and then go fuck yourself. I don't say things just because my audience likes it. I don't say things because it will impress people. I say things because I think they have value and need to be said. Let me explain this too, and this is something maybe we can all learn as a valuable social media lesson. There are things that are valuable to know. There are things that are valuable to experience in your own life. And then there are things that are one of those things, but also are valuable to be expressed. Not only are they worth knowing for your own life, but your knowledge of them has enough depth where you can express it to another person and they'll get it and it may help them. Now, that's not everything. And a lot of people spurg all over fucking social media with stuff that might be good to know or might make you feel good to think you know. And they just blurb it out when they have no actual connection to it. They're either just like playing like group badminton, and they're just whacking the shuttlecock that they saw. Just get it over the fence. I don't care what it is. Just get it over the fence. That's all they care about. That's all that matters. Is that it's coming their way. Just bat it in the direction of the other side, without actually understanding that it has no weight and you're just fucking batting a fucking, like a little ping pong ball with feathers attached to it, right? It has no weight. It's not going to help. It doesn't matter. And you don't have a grip on it enough, even if it did matter, to do it any good. And that would go to my third statement. This goes out more to the faux-aggressives because, quite frankly, this is not necessarily a lesson I want the maggots to learn. I feel like anybody who's, wants ill will towards most of humanity, I feel very bad sometimes when I'm expressing certain things and I'm like, man, if they heard me, they might actually figure out how to message this awful better. And I don't want that. I hope they miss this part and, whatever. But there is a key to this, is that sometimes the message is more important than the messenger. I think we can agree. Most of the times when it's worthwhile, the message is more important than the messenger. And you will get it no matter who delivers it. But then there are some areas where, because of socio-political pressures, cultural matters, history, complexity, it is difficult for people to absorb the issue. And so the messenger about it matters a lot. It matters where it's coming from, whether you trust that person, whether they speak your language, whether they can express this thing in a way that you will absorb. Yeah? Okay. And there's an issue largely with faux-aggressives. And I don't mean like the folks over at TYT, who I believe genuinely mean ill. But I think there are a lot of what I guess I would call them bad shepherds of good flocks. And they spend a lot of time flocking around. And that they think because the message is important and the message has weight, by carrying that message, even if they do it really poorly, especially if they do it really poorly, I would argue, they believe that the weight and importance of that message, whether they understand it or not, the kind of general social acceptance of a particular point of view or in their social circle, if they carry this bucket and deliver the message, if they think they will gain value from being the messenger, that there's a courageous aspect or a valorous, a stolen valor of creating the message. I heard this from somebody else, not my idea, but I heard it from somebody else. I'm repeating it basically verbatim. I don't actually get it. I don't actually I'm not actually communicating it. I'm just repeating what I've heard, bumper sticker style, right? And MAGAs do this all the time. And the very person who carries that message or whatever also wants, look how important the message, look how good this makes me look to say these things. That's what the right accuses the left of, like virtue signaling, right? That's what they'll call it on our side. And on the right, it's really about artificial or performative fidelity to magotdom or to Trump himself, or I guess by association, them all just applaud. Like basically every maggot right now, everything they're saying is applauding Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Like, you should just hear what they're saying, no matter what they're talking about, whether it's fucking tariffs or the border or any of that kind of. This is all they're doing. They're just hooray, Jeffrey Epstein. That's what they're doing. That's what they're actually saying. That's what their message is, because it's their fidelity to Donald Trump will not allow them to distance themselves away from Jeffrey Epstein's wingman, right? But there are on the fringes, and this is why I stay away from the whole both sides do it shit. On the fringes of anything, the fringe is more like a circle than it is a side. And that if you get to the sort of ad absurdum limit of an idea, you will find the fringe believers. Now, I would argue the value of weirdos is that some people who go to the extreme, whether they're extreme vegans or they fucking, live in the woods all the time and they never have a house and they've got, or, the Amish or whatever, there's a value to people who will go further than most society will. But they usually die early and of something that stings or itches. And so, or makes them fall asleep before they're consumed. And, so that's not good for general society, but they have value that they will go that extra few steps beyond what's normal. But when they expect normalcy to behave like them, that's the problem. Because they themselves do not know that the ground that they are walking on or treading on, yes, zealots in particular, they do not know that it will actually resolve well. They don't. But they act as if it's the only path. And that's where you get into maggots to Branch Davidians to Jonestown to fucking, deep-seated KGB sleeper cell people and folks that will, I would argue, vote R even when Donald Trump is at the helm, as if the Republican Party has continued to be whatever the fuck it is, right? Now, the great thing about being a Democrat, even with a big D on your chest, is that I'm voting for the diversity of thought that is out there. You don't have to agree with everything I want to do to be part of democracy, which is what being a Democrat to me is about. So I don't need, as a matter of fact, I think it is antithetical to being a Democrat to be a purist, right? Because you're automatically excluding the conversation. I mean, you can argue that by volume, most of us want some form of single-payer universal health care at some point, right? We want to get there. I do. I think most of you guys do. How you get there and whether or not it works when you do takes some actual thought. And there's a lot of meeting in the middle. There's a lot of actual legislating and fixing and, you got to check the tires all the time to make sure this thing keeps rolling, right? Otherwise there'll be a backlash and it's done. England got theirs because they were basically bombed to nothing in World War II, and we don't want to wait for that to happen unless you're Susan Sarandon and you hope the world ends just to show them, right? So no purity test for me. I want government fascist free. Right, that's exactly right. That fascism has many faces, and an insistence on behavior to a rigid code is a form of fascism in a democratic situation. Anytime there's a populace, anytime there's a citizenry, right? So for me, as a Democrat, we can have conservative Democrats and liberal Democrats and the entire spectrum, in and amongst that, because within that idea that everyone's voice should count and that we're all created equal, all those different opinions might get us to something that we all have blind spots on if we just focus on, my way or the highway, right? So, to everybody who would institute a purity test, I would, my first reaction, is to just say fuck you. But I think you'd be welcome in the Republican Party, because the essence of the Republican Party is indeed one of the oldest purity tests there is. And that purity test is the haves and the have-nots. God has gifted the haves, and they deserve it. This is like the Joel Osteen kind of, God wants you to be abundant, and if you're not abundant, you're probably not in line with God. And the haves and have-nots are not an accident of fate or an aspect of, bootstrapping or financial work or any of that kind of stuff. It is literally God favors some and does not favor others. And as a matter of fact, they kind of have it coming. So if you're born poor and you're not able to accidentally pop into the rich field to like a miracle, if you're denied that miracle, you probably are, you're living out original sin, shit like that, right? The Republican Party is a purity test. The haves versus the have-nots. That's what their party is about. That is the essence of it. That's why it is based on the Electoral College and land ownership. It's why Trump claims victory when he wins counties that are red but empty. Do you understand? Because to him, a county with hundreds of thousands of people in it, or a county with 12 people who own farms or big estates, the one with the 12 farms or big estates is more valuable to him. Right? And somebody said, again, like Jesus is a progressive socialist. No, progressive maybe, although I think if he was kind of ordering it, it was a directive, love thy neighbor as yourself, and which beats the golden rule. It's purer than the golden rule. The golden rule is still based on self-centered self-interest, still based on self-interest. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you means be considerate of yourself first, whereas love your neighbor as yourself means everyone you meet is an appendage of your own body, that you cannot separate yourself from anyone else. You are doing to others as you would do unto yourself, no matter what. So anyways, it's a bigger philosophical question we can have later. Jesus was a Christian. Was he no, he was the Christ is the idea, right? Jesus was stoic. He couldn't be, because everything was in his locus of control because he was God. That's always the thing about you can't assign politics to Christ. And this is why we have separation of church and state. And this is another thing. And then we'll get into what clips we have today. And because I'm already starting late, so what the fuck? Yes, what you do unto the poorest, you do unto me. That was him taking it very personally, which was a beautiful thing. Jesus was Jewish, and then he ceased to be because he was the first Christian, right? Is that the idea? Is that I believe in the separation of church and state in a legal sense, but I insist that if someone calls themselves a Christian, they have to, and they say it in public, they have to act in the highest order in terms of what they do publicly. And give a shit if there's, I mean, I kind of do, but it doesn't matter to me if they're sneaking around and fucking around and all that kind of stuff. But if you're going to legislate as a Christian, I want to see like Jesus language in your stuff. Protection of the poor, the disabled, right? The meek, caring for people who are just trying to care for themselves and among themselves. And if you dare say that your religion causes wars. No, it does not. Lack of resources causes wars. All wars in history, but for, well, I was about to say, but for some, they're all resource wars. They're all based on societal need of supplies. Yeah, you either walk, if you're going to say you believe that, that you're a Christian, you're going to label yourself as such. You're going to carry that around with yourself. I'm fine with that. If you even say, I want to have a prayer in the Capitol and all that kind of stuff, and I brought my pastor or something, and he's going to say the prayer in front of Congress or whatever, I'm actually okay with that as long as your behavior is aligned with that like a fucking tuning fork. And I don't want to hear about Judeo-Christian values. I don't want to hear Old Testament when you're angry and New Testament when you're patting yourself on the back for making it fucking ice cream day. I want you to walk and talk and legislate as if you were giving the Sermon on the Mount. And if you can't, then shut the fuck up. You're not a Christian. You aren't. And the only way I know somebody is actually a Christian, especially in circumstances where they are in a position of power, the only way you should know is by their actions. They shouldn't have to tell you. And if they're wearing a cross, it's fucking, at a certain point, it's gang colors. It's a fucking gang sign. They might as well be doing this. The same way Mike Lindell is, and they're only wearing it for show. It should be, because these are, you got to understand, like Christianity, the root of it is extraordinary in its thought. Right? It's like, think of what it would take even at that time in history, but even now, to be as open-hearted and forgiving as he prescribes. Think about loving thy neighbor as thyself. Love your enemies. Forgive those who've trespassed against you. Right? Think about what it would take to do that in your life. Everywhere, all day, every day, in business, in government, in your family. Think about what that would take and the extraordinary ask that comes from that thought form. And then think about if you knew somebody personally and you didn't know anything about their religious beliefs, you couldn't see the books in their houses, you didn't know what they believed, right? In that form. All you could do was look at what they do. All they could do. All you could do is just see what their actions are every single day. And that would be the only way you would know, oh, okay, he's doing his best to be as Jesus prescribed. Now picture a person like that. Do they tell you about it all the time, unprovoked? Are they wearing a big fucking cross on their lapel all the time? Do they prescribe church to everybody else? And I don't mean during their early evangelical phase. There's some people who just always talk it up, right? But it's usually self-evident in those people that are doing it from a genuine stance, or they'll just go, my wife and I, we were at church this weekend, and if they say something like that, it just kind of, because that's part of their social life, right? And they just say it naturally. There's a difference, and I think you can see it, right? And so I am struck right now by, all right, two things. One is, I was watching a panel on the cast of Mindhunter talking about their experience as actors auditioning for it and that kind of stuff. The kind like the panel that I did with Queer as Folk recently, and they were talking about how they auditioned or whatever, and they were talking about one of the primary things is that the serial killers they dealt with were all narcissists on some level. Whether they were telling everybody as they were doing it, writing letters to the press and stuff, they wanted credit. They always wanted credit. Look at me. Look what I'm doing. You're afraid of me. They're laying that out there. And that was not about, even in the case of the Unabomber, for example, their message. It was about their own worth, their own ego. And I've argued that all like mass shooters it's an act of ego. Pay attention to me. My gripe is more important than this woman's life. My issues with how I am treated are more important than a stranger I come upon in a hallway in the middle of my thing that I kill, right? And so it's not about, it's never about like what society did. It's never really about any of that shit. It's about the person that does it wanting me time. For real. And if you think it in those terms, it gets real pathetic real fast. And I would argue, not to make a direct correlation, simmer the fuck down, maggots, between like magotdom and Trump and that crowd and serial killers. But they make a point in one of the shows about how he goes, how do you become that Nixon had psychopathic traits, and she was doing this. He goes, and Holden Ford asks Wendy, the doctor who they're working with, how do you become the president if you're a psychopath? And she goes, the question is really, how do you become president if you're not? Because the necessary, just the work that it requires, like the self-focus it takes, or I think she dismisses the blatant altruism. This is, Carter was president when they were talking like this, and he was a sweetheart. But that was the idea, was that you'd have to be a narcissist to even get there. And I would argue that most of the maggot leaders are narcissists. I don't think Trump is. I think he's got low self-esteem and he compensates, but they don't care. They don't know the difference. Jesus was born an immigrant. Again, the Romans had taken over the area, so it's hard to tell whether it was an immigrant or whether they'd been colonized in that regard. Right? The Jews were driven out and Palestine named after the Philistines because there isn't a P or whatever in the language. So instead of the F, they went with the P. All right. Anyways, the name of the Palestinian territories was a colonization phrase by the Romans, like that kind of shit. Okay, whatever. Well, that's another history lesson for another time. The important thing is, though, that there is a narcissistic element of the Republican Party because of their elite status and their belief in the idea of haves and have-nots that is not only not shocking that someone like Trump would boil to the top of that, but that there is nowhere else the Republican Party ultimately can go. Right? That's the end of it, right? It is baked into the concept of Republican, landowners and the Electoral College and the Senate, which is the essence of Republican governance, to run a republic in a bigger form, right? Versus democracy, which is everyone has a say and we'll all work out this messy shit together, which is the Democratic side of things and why I'm a Democrat. Whereas Republicans have elitism built into their system. And Trump's populist bullshit that he was selling is doomed to fail because of the very nature of the party itself, the raison d'etre of the party in the first place. So, if you want a purity test, and this is probably why Anna's moving right and all these people are moving right, because if you want a purity test, the Republicans are your jam, right? There is no better purity test than I got mine and you can't have it. And as a Democrat, I got to tell you, as much as people might want it or try to sell it, the essence of democracy and the idea of diversity includes within it uncomfortable ideas that have to be worked out in conversation with people you disagree with. Love your neighbors, love your enemy, and look after the poor. That takes work. Being an elitist asshole in New York and Palm Beach doesn't. It's the success that they value is based on laziness. It's based on, the laziness built into it is how they differentiate themselves. They don't view it as lazy. They call it entitlement. That's why, by the way, they think people who live on entitlements, like Social Security and stuff, are lazy. That's why they think people on welfare are lazy. Because, again, they are projecting. They can't see another way. Because it's very black and white. It's very up and down. That divide could not be more stark. And so anybody, by the way, who sees a Democrat that they disagree with on a particular issue, or they have a beef with about one particular thing, they don't go far enough on this issue or too far on another or whatever, I got news for you. I'll argue those points with them, but they're still a Democrat, and they still have a right to represent people if they're running for office, even if I disagree with them, if they get the majority of votes, whether it's Cuellar in Texas or Mamdani in New York, right? Because the essence of democracy is everybody has their say, and there's majority rule with protections for minorities built in. Other than that, I have no opinion. That's right. Well, on that note, all right. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. No, I just felt like a few of those things needed to be said. But anybody who tries to purify the Democratic Party and drive out people who are, conservative Dems, centrists, whatever they want, whatever derogatory term they attach onto Democrat, I just want to say that whatever you believe, you're against diversity. You are anti-diversity. You just are. I would argue Republicans, that's not about useful, functional ideas. That's not somebody who's on the same team as you. That's the opposing side, and that's fine. But anybody who is within this big tent and does want these goals and just differs on how to get there, largely, or has legit ethical differences with you on something that you're dug in on or that they're dug in on, that's democracy, man. That's why I'm not down on the United States even right now. And our country, for a lot of years, and through a lot of stuff, slavery, civil rights, suffrage, all these other things, we've been on the cutting edge of the messy parts of human existence. That's why we, you can dig up, like Florida Man, you can dig up all of this shit, about America's past and what we've been through, because we've been on the cutting edge of doing these things. Other countries didn't even bother. Or they're still fucking doing it. And I made this point on, whose show was it the other day? I lost track at this point. But, slavery right now is legal in China and Russia and large parts of the Middle East. And yes, on Titus, thank you. And in North Africa certain countries in there, Eritrea and others, is legal and practiced in these things, in these countries. Now, I know people in China, when it comes to China, they'll call it forced labor. When it comes to Russia, they'll force conscription of immigrants. They'll gather people up, or they'll basically take North Koreans gifted to them by the government and put them on the front lines. That's not forced labor or forced conscription. That's slavery. You understand? That's slavery, and it's happening now. It's not wage slavery and debt slavery and student loans make me feel like a slave. No, actual fucking slavery right now on this earth. And at some point, like I said, we will get to the point where we can, we'll be able to pare out the finer weeds in the garden. But there are big elements of humanity that are a fucking invasive species doing direct awful, and lots of it all at once. And so again, I will say unequivocally, until we have a 60 vote majority in the Senate and 60% of the House and the presidency, I don't want to hear any bullshit about somebody patting themselves on the back for taking a blue district and making it bluer. Waste of fucking time, resources, and human lives. You are wasting human lives in the process. Other than that, I have no opinion. Okay, all right. Now, hi, everybody, you're great. And by the way, I hope CSL had a great birthday yesterday. Last night, Summer and I went and saw Lenny Kravitz. He's doing sort of a residency here. So we're doing our part to keep Vegas afloat. But it was, I got to say, I like him anyways, and I'm predisposed to liking his show. But it was all killer, no filler, and I think he maybe said like 8 sentences the whole show, and it was just fucking music. It was amazing. Yeah. His he did an interesting thing, which was his encore is "Let Love Rule." Now, a lot of people, they would make, because they want everybody to go out on a specific kind of high energy high. They would have put "Are You Gonna Go My Way" or "Mama Said," or one of those songs, one of the more up-tempo ones, as the, like, oh, he's definitely going to play "Are You Going to Go My Way," right? So they, that he hasn't played it, so we'll all clap until he does. He ended with "Are You Going to Go My Way," and then when they came back out, they did this big like confetti drop during, and doing "Let Love Rule." So I like, Summer's so funny because I was like, he, as the crowd sang, and people were like, like they were like, it just like the whole place, it was packed. It was a big crowd or whatever, and I was like, shouldn't you be singing like we're in a fuck crowd? I literally, like, I barely hear it in the crowd. I'm like, the acoustics in this place must just suck ass, or they're all going that direction. Are we in perfect acoustics or some shit? Like, why is this happening? So I'm literally like, let love rule. Like, I'm doing the whole drop down part of it. You've got to let love rule. Like I was just, at one point I was just like, okay, is it gonna be me? It's just like, I'm gonna have to be the guy. I'm gonna be the guy. All right, I'll be the loud guy singing my ass off. And so I did, and it was a good time. So it was, but he sounded terrific. He played like a beast. And his guitar player, Craig Ross, I believe his name is a monster. His drummer's amazing. Holy shit. She was just fucking, it was just thunder the whole time. I am that guy. You're goddamn right. So it was just, best sound live show. It sounded like a fucking album. Like, it was so good. And it's all live, because he's a big stickler about that. So, yeah. Sorry, I woke your cat up. That happens. So, anyways, it was terrific. If you get a chance to see him, I insist. It's a great show. And you can tell he's like just this big smiley sweetheart. And he's selling this message of love during the things. I think that's probably what got my hackles up about like real Christianity versus this faux Christianity and real progressive versus faux aggressive, right? That it matters. It's gotta matter. Hal thought he was in the shower. I sing like this anyways. You've been to D&B concerts where people are like that? Yeah, it's just whatever. But it was great. I mean, it sounded so good. Am I younger or older? I'm younger than he is. I think he's 60. It looks great though.